Hi, everybody. So this is just my reflection on what I learned through the process of gathering data in the last module. So I think one of the struggles I had was how to start, and I was nervous, and the person who I was interviewing was a colleague, so I knew them well, and so that made me nervous as well. In some respects, though, that's kind of superficial because I'm not so sure how much that person will be like the people who I actually don't know, who I'm trying to engage with and develop a relationship in short order, so that we can have a respectful, trusting conversation. The other thing initially in terms of how to get started was I was really focused on stuff that I learned when I was in my first graduate school education, which was social work. I was really focused on how to actually conduct an interview and engage people in a very trusting, respectful way. And so I was very conscious of my body posture, the tone of my voice, my eye contact, and trying to really present as genuine and empathic and respectful. In the beginning as well, I would say that another thing, and this is something I think that I learned from that graduate education as well, that's been reinforced through our current program, is one way to really build trust, I think, is to begin with going over one more time with feeling what the purpose of the research is, and just establishing clarity around that, and then going over again, even though there's been an informed consent that's been signed, going over with the participant just how safe the environment will be, because there are these protections and safeguards of confidentiality and anonymity. And then, of course, I think it was really helpful to kick off the interview by ensuring that the person understood they had permission to ask questions at any time, to stop the interview if they're uncomfortable, and to discuss and process that. And for sure, that they understood that we were equal partners in this interview process, so much so that they could challenge me if I wasn't actually reframing, or they felt that I wasn't actually hearing them or interpreting what they were saying in an appropriate way. So my sense was that was a very helpful way to start the interview, and that it indeed did or would develop certainly some level of trust and rapport. My warm-up exercise, though, I started to become a little bit concerned about, not during the interview, but afterward. So it seemed to go fine. My warm-up interview was to ask the participant to consider what the informal forms of influence were in the organization that led to some of the outcomes that existed. So I was really trying to get to the heart of what wasn't happening in the normal hierarchical structure that was happening elsewhere in the organizations. Of course, we know this happens. And it seemed to go fine in the interview, but it was through my reflection process in the forum afterward that Leanne McIver suggested to me that perhaps it was very bold, and so so great, but on the other hand, with some subjects, would that not be threatening to begin with something, an exercise like that? And I've thought about that quite a bit, and I would say, yeah, it could be. And so then I wonder how much would that threat be moderated by good interview skills and creating a safe environment at the front end. And I'm still not sure. So I'm having to reflect more on my opening exercise and the extent to which we'll actually enable the interview, or potentially, if it's not done well, get the interview off to a bad start, and then influence, of course, the data collection in a negative way. The research questions I think I learned a lot about my research questions through going through this process. First of all, I think I've got too many, maybe double what is realistic. And if I'm really going to try to have each subject interviewed within an hour and a half, then I've either got to reduce the questions significantly, or I've got to ask that they be interviewed probably a second time. But I'm more inclined now, as I think about it, to want to reduce the interview questions, and part of that is because I also had a sense through the interview, and I've had some sense through my discussions with my dissertation advisor and other, that my questions are too prescriptive, and I think that I kind of came by that honestly, in the sense that much of my literature review, I called information from quantitative studies that were frameworks that were relatively prescriptive in terms of traits and behaviors that one might expect to find in leadership, or good leaders. And so my questions very often seem to link very much to that literature, and almost confirming that literature, when really in a qualitative interview, and my research question is qualitative, and my design is meant to be qualitative, I should really be having more open questions and questions that enable people to tell their story, and to tell it without being led consciously or unconsciously in a certain direction. So I'm going to have to go back on my research questions and really reflect on that, reduce them, I think, considerably, and really work to make them much less prescriptive and more open-ended, so that what I'm left with through my study is a more rich, descriptive data set. The last piece of, I think, my learnings was with respect to the transcript writing. I'm still struggling with what to put into a transcript. How much is the right amount? Is there too little? My sense is that I wrote too little in my first effort. I think what it taught me also was that you're going to have to go back repeatedly to your audio recordings and validate and embellish relative to what you think you heard initially, and not just embellish in terms of more content or specific quotes, but looking for emotional content. And one of the readings in Module 5 really, I think, caused me to think more about that there will be sort of an emotional cadence that goes through an interview, and the person's actual words may not be nearly as impactful if you can also incorporate in your transcript what the level of emotional sort of engagement around what they were saying was at that given moment. So these are, I think, some of the biggest things I've learned thus far through this process. Thanks very much.